you guys familiar with toad venom?
Toad venom.
That's what they put on darts, don't they? Poisonous spears and arrows and stuff to take down
There's
animals. Yeah.
apparently different varieties of toad venom. Some are poisonous, some are not.
People getting high on this
Um,
thing?
Yeah, I was gonna say, doesn't Homer Simpson lick some toads?
but that occurred to me when my dad was telling me that story. I'm like, man, that's an interesting niche.
I always think about the hoverboard. I was talking to my kids this weekend, and we were talking about like businesses. Eh? I was talking to my son about like, having more of an entrepreneurial mindset and all that. And he's like, we saw a bunch of kids on a hoverboard, right? And we're like, I was like, oh man, I haven't seen one of those in a long time. And I was thinking about it, like, what's the problem that a hoverboard solves?
The first thing that comes to my mind is it solves a problem for parents. Kids are bored, kids are acting up, they need a distraction. It's the same thing that an iPad solves for parents.
Yeah.
Gives them something to do for a while. Parents get a
The only
break.
difference is that the hoverboards they explode, right? They overheat. So
Perfect.
so basically they're creating again, I think the point is the hoverboard is a solution to a problem that we already have tons of other solutions for.
Also,
So it's very similar to what you said earlier. Like teachers are creating solutions to problems that other places are solving, like language schools are solving. So I think what teachers really need to figure out is like, what is a very specific problem that I'm solving for a very specific group of people, and I have a very specific method or way of guiding them through that. That's what I don't see.
That's actually probably what kind of sets us apart in terms of how we approach our own program with the teacherpreneurs that we work with, which is very much we see ourselves as doing that, taking them through their transformation, being very transparent with the steps they need to take, but at the end of the day, holding them accountable. And I mean, most of the teacherpreneurs that I talk to in our network, I think that's probably the biggest compliment that we get is, without you guys, I never would have done this, right? And they're not talking about made more money or found 100 students. They're talking about, I never would have actually done it, like tick those boxes. And I think it's the exact same mindset that language teachers should be having with their own students. And that is, your job is less about delivering content, and it's more about making sure your students are putting in the work to get to that transformation. And ironically, it actually involves you doing less work and giving more control over to the students. And it's just hard. It's counterintuitive, but it's the way to go.
This is the Teacher Talking Time podcast.
when's the last time you ate at McDonald's?
I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but 2 weeks ago, I went out for McDonald's.
What'd you get?
Yeah.
Nice.
I got you know what? When I was a kid, I always got a Big Mac. But lately,
Same.
I've been into the quarter pounder with cheese. And I don't know why. I think it's just that protein pack of meat that you get, and box standard McDonald's cheese, the pickles, the ketchup is basically a ginormous cheeseburger. But anyways, yeah.
It's like the only one that
went
has a
for it
pickle,
once.
I think. I'm a big pickle guy.
That's right.
So,
It's what they call the Royale with
Yeah.
cheese, right?
yes. Yes. Exactly.
Great movie.
You can order, have you ever ordered a McDonald's takeout to get a burger without the bun? It really confuses them. It takes them
I
forever.
used when I was on that carnivore stage of my life, I actually would do that. I would like, can I get like 6 cheeseburgers but with no buns and ketchup? And they would be like, what? So they would have to put it like on. And I said, I still want some of the. I still want the cheese. I still want the patties. I just don't want the buns. And they're like, okay.
They make like a
little
plate,
tray.
like a takeaway,
Tray.
like a tray. Yeah, it takes forever. Leo, you're pretty
That's
healthy.
hilarious.
When's the last time you went to McDonald's?
I was gonna say same thing. 2 weeks ago, I had some.
Oh,
I had.
no way.
You know what?
Surprising.
I love the apple pies there. I love their apple pies.
Ah, that's a good one.
And then I ordered some like vanilla ice cream and I just dip the apple pie in that. That's my cheat meal. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
That's
It's a strong
it
move,
is.
actually.
If I'm gonna
How
cheat
about
on my
surprised
meal,
we
on my health, it has to be like the Pamela Anderson of cheating, for me. And that would be like dipping.
you're dating yourself a little bit
Exactly.
there, but yeah.
Yeah.
Point made.
Baywatch
Yeah.
version, I'm assuming. Yeah. I'm surprised we didn't see each other at McDonald's because I'm 2 weeks ago too.
Oh.
Basically, like the long weekend, August long weekend, which is
What'd you
2 weeks
get?
ago.
Yeah.
I'm with Mike, quarter pounder with cheese, man. That's my cheat. Two things. I do that, or I go to Wendy's and get the spicy chicken. That's my other
Spicy
like
chicken.
guilty pleasure.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a big bacon classic kind of guy, but they changed the name of it now. It's something else with bacon in it. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the
But Wendy's
Baconator,
also
I
has a
think,
good
right?
burger. Yeah.
But Dave's
Baconator is like
something or other,
over the
or-
top bacon, but there is like a initial stage 1 cheeseburger with bacon, and it used to be the Big Bacon Classic, but it's been renamed.
All right. I didn't know that. The reason I asked about McDonald's is because obviously we work with teachers, and if you're listening, and we, hear the sentiment a lot about how business is difficult and it's hard to get students and hard to get clients. And we always say, well, it's true. It is. And I'm sure you guys saw the news, but McDonald's reported their first loss or significant drop or first drop in sales period in over 4
No
years.
way. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So they're at the end of the last quarter, it was the first quarter drop in sales
1%.
since before COVID.
1%, Andrew. You're right. Yeah. Since the COVID. Yeah.
Well, 1% in McDonald's language is a lot. They generate about $6.5 billion per quarter, according to this article that I was reading.
Yeah.
So if you're a teacher and struggling with your business, just know you're right there with McDonald's. McDonald's is struggling too. I was half expecting you guys to say, no, I haven't been to McDonald's in forever. To which I was going to say, you're part of the problem. That's why there's sales.
I'm doing my share,
dropping.
baby. Yeah.
I like McDonald's, but even I think business struggling is common. So even if McDonald's can struggle, so can we. But in this episode, I know we want to tackle kind of a big elephant in the room that our industry has, but I know it's not specific to our industry either. So this big precarity word that is thrown around, and for good reason. Our industry is precarious by nature, right? Unstable or inconsistent, or however you want to define it. And it's a reality, but it's certainly not something that is specific to teaching, right? If you work at McDonald's, you may find your job to be precarious. If you're a journalist, if you work in media and a bunch of other fields, I'm sure you may describe your industry as being precarious. But in teaching, certainly it is, right? And Leo, you and I did a live a few months ago, I think it was, talking about this and options that exist for teachers. So I guess first off, we'll just talk about mindset, because how do you guys recommend, or how do, if the teacher's listening, how do you tackle or process this precariousness, to add a noun suffix to it, in our industry? Because there's different ways of looking at it, and we talk to a lot of teachers all the time who kind of take different avenues of discussing precarity, but maybe just in your personal experience, because we all experience, we're in it too, right? This is part of our lives as well. How do you look at precarity? How do you conceptualize it in your mind? How do you deal with it?
Mike, you want to go first?
Yeah, like for me, I just find precarity and this idea of perhaps a lack of commitment, right? So a lack of investment, perhaps on the part of, say, the employer into a lack of investment of the employer into the employee, but then also like the investment of the employee into the company. I think that you could look at it two different ways. I think for me, one way is to just embrace it. And I think that what I mean by that is I kind of like the idea from time to time of being able to, say, work for a particular organization, institution, get as much out of it as I can, but then also know that I'm not committing fully to it, and that there's opportunities there for me to say, go out and try different things and to take on new projects or travel to new places. So one of the exciting things when I first started teaching was I had a contract for a year, right? So I could go to South Korea for a year. And if I liked it, I could stay longer. And if I didn't like it, I was free to go to another country and to learn a new language and teach a whole different group of students. And I think certainly if you're just starting your career, like maybe that's something that's quite attractive about this idea of companies being willing to invest in you up to a point and to have you work for them for a certain period of time with the option of, say, continuing or leaving. And then I think as I've gotten older, it's also this kind of not fear, but we want, Leo and I often talk about this. We like to just try new things, right? And sometimes if you're involved in an institution with a lot of rigid procedures and protocol, it can be a little challenging to say, go out and start a podcast or to try teaching in a different way. And therefore, there are a lot of teachers who kind of just want to work at a particular school, performing a role up to a certain point because it fulfills perhaps some sort of financial goal that they have, but also gives them that freedom to, say, do other projects or work for other people or work with other people as well. So for me, I don't know, I'm trying not to sugarcoat it, but I kind of have seen the precarity kind of as a positive thing in some regards. Having said that, yeah, sure, it never feels good to be questioning, will I have a job in January, or how many hours will I be teaching in January? So I get it, especially if people want to settle down and have a family or maybe invest in a home or something like that. That's where I think the real pain comes from. But yeah, I think you also, it's, as you said, it's a kind of a mindset thing, though, isn't it, Andrew? Right? Like, whereas it's like, how can you flip the script so that perhaps there is some sort of silver lining to it all, right? Yeah.
It really, I think what you just said there, Mike, is probably the most important thing, because I think at the end of the day is you have to stick with the facts. And the facts are there is precarity, not just in language education, but there's precarity in a lot of other industries. I have friends who are personal trainers, and it's very much the same thing. Sometimes you do have work, sometimes you don't have work. It's very difficult for you to get a full-time contract as a personal trainer. So I feel that, and I hope that the people who are listening to this podcast today are not going to take this at face value, but I think we need to check our privilege too. The fact that you are offered an opportunity to teach in a specific institution, you're getting paid a certain amount of money, where the company is actually taking all the risk. You should be grateful that you've had a chance to get an opportunity like that. But at the same time, as you said, Mike, I think we have to accept the fact that precarity is what it is. It won't change. I think complaining about it won't do anything. I think raising awareness of the problem might eventually shift the focus towards this somewhat precarious situation. But the reality is, I think for teachers who, you have two options, right? It's either you just complain about it and you spend the rest of your life trying to find a system that eventually, we all know this, education doesn't like innovation. It's going to take forever. But I think if you accept what you said, Andrew, like it really is a mindset shift. And I was talking to a client recently, and she's like, Leo, how do I work on my mindset? And I said, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to work on your mindset. But there is the first mindset tip for teachers who want to embrace this and accept the reality that we work in an industry where precarity is the norm. I think you just have to remind yourself that precarity also presents an opportunity for you. And if you are able to recognize the potential growth and innovation that uncertain or unstable situations, like not knowing if you're going to have a teaching contract, present to yourself, then I think you can do something with that. I think I'm reminded of a quote by Seneca, because I decided to, I've been working on my mindset too lately.
I'm
I'm back on it. I took a break after 7 years, and I realized, I thought, oh, maybe if I take a break, I'm going to be okay. You know what? You lose it. You lose everything. You become it's like going back to square one. But Seneca said that you have to always try to apply yourself to thinking through difficulties. And he basically said, if you think through those difficulties, you can make hard times be softened. You can make tight squeezes widen, you can make heavy loads lighter if you know how to apply the right pressure. And that's kind of the kind of thing that I think teachers have. Teachers have a lot of energy, they have a lot of creativity, but above all, if you have the faith in yourself, which some people call confidence, I like to call it faith in yourself, that you actually can do something, then I think you're going to be far ahead in doing this, in leveraging precarity as a way for you to innovate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. And find joy, right? Like, where can you find the joy in all of that? What seems like chaos, where is that joy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many stages of grief are there? As I'm
5?
I'm listening to you guys talk. Is 5 stages
yeah.
of grief?
5 stages.
I don't know,
5
but
is
the last
fine.
one is acceptance.
Acceptance, yes.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's
mean-
why we're so positive. That's why we're
Good point. That's a very good point.
So I mean, I just googled it over here, so I don't make a mistake. But the first one is denial.
yeah.
So talking about precarity, and again, in just like the global economy, present and going into the future, this is what it is, right? Contract to contract. This is just how it's going to go. For my mindset on this is it's irrelevant what my opinion of it is, because it is what it is, right?
fair point. Yeah.
And if we're trying to solve it, I don't even know what the solution would be. What does that even? And it's so complex, and it's just probably not going to happen, as you guys said, right? So the first stage is denial, so we can deny that precarity exists, or we can. Next stage is anger. You can be angry at it. Many people are there.
Yeah.
We can bargain,
Many people are there. Yeah.
which is the next stage. I've never really understood that phase of grief. Trying to is it like negotiating with yourself? Like, I'm not sure exactly.
I think as someone who's
what
gone through
bargaining is.
grieving stages, bargaining is like, you're kind of like bargaining with yourself, like, maybe I should have done more. Maybe I should have contacted this person a little more. So you're kind of like, you're bargaining with yourself, thinking that maybe you could have done more, when in reality you didn't.
Yeah. Or like,
Yeah,
if,
if-
right? Like,
what if I had done
if I
this?
do
Yeah.
this, then it won't be as bad. Or if, or
So if a
It
teacher
wouldn't
doesn't
be
get
that
that
bad.
contract, they would go through that perhaps. I could have
if I
done
just-
more.
yeah,
Why
if I
didn't
just
they
stay here
choose
for
me?
2 more years, maybe, then
Right.
I won't be in a precarious situation. Or
Or if I had just done a little bit more prep, maybe the class
Yeah.
would have been better,
Yeah,
or
maybe
something like that.
Or like you make a bargain with like a religious entity, like, oh, if this person, if this happens, I promise that I will do this. If you're religious, I didn't give you religious examples, but
yes, yeah.
but yeah, there is this and again,
Fair enough.
it's a very rational behavior. If you just stuck with the facts, it's irrational. But anyway,
Well, as we go through this, I don't think there are many teachers that would deny precarity exists. I think we'll skip the first one. Anger, definitely many people live there. Maybe if you're listening, you're living in the bargaining phase. Then comes depression. That's the
there's
fourth
a lot of people
stage
there.
of grief.
Wow.
So we're sad about it.
That's a lot of people. Like, do I want to continue going? Right? Yeah.
Funny enough, I talked to a teacher this morning at this institution that I work at, and she was telling me that she is taking a few summer courses because she wants to move in a different direction. She's like, I'm sick and tired of teaching. And I said, but Mike, it goes back to what you said, right? It's either you love this very much and you find a way to make it work, or you just move on. But you can't be in the anger.
I think that's true for probably most workplaces, but it's particularly sad, especially because teachers can have such a real powerful positive impact on the world. And when you lose great teachers to other fields, then that's how many lives aren't being affected positively by that
Exactly.
person, right? It's kind of sad to hear. Yeah.
So that's an interesting dichotomy. There's two paths there. It sounds like if we get to the fourth stage, which is depression, then we can leave the field, do something else. Or then we get to what you guys just described. Sounds like acceptance, right? Where, okay, it is what it is. I can succumb to this and suffer for the rest of my career. I can leave the field and do something else. Or I can stay, take the reins, and do something about it.
Yeah.
Or better said, take initiative to analyze my own situation and make choices that are best for me.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because it's a reality, right? Leo, you mentioned, I forget the name of the school off the top of my head, but recently a big school in
Yeah.
Canada closed down,
ESC, yeah.
went out of business, right? This happens semi-frequently, right? Canada has new laws coming in, I think in September. We're recording this in August, so I think I could be wrong, but I believe the new visa restrictions kick in September, which we'll see, I guess. But theoretically significantly limit new international students coming into the country, and where and which schools they can actually study at. And these are just local examples. These happen all over the world. So these things will kind of happen regardless, right? So as we kind of talked about before, Leo, in our life, we don't, with that acceptance mindset, maybe we don't depend on other people. We want to take an initiative, and this is the industry. And so what are some options that exist for us to do if we want to, if we don't want to leave the profession? Let's assume, we kind of want to stay in it, because we could go, normally I joke, you go work at McDonald's, but they're losing money. So maybe that's not the best option to go do that.
Not if we keep going there. Maybe more than every 2 weeks though. Yeah.
I make it my mission to keep McDonald's in business. How about that? That's my,
I think they will survive.
bargaining
I
with
think they're
myself.
just having.
Yeah, I think they'll be all
They'll
right.
be all right.
I'm sure they'll be fine. They've introduced this new $5 meal thing, so I think that's good. But
The
even
chicken sandwich looks pretty good too.
it does. McDonald's, I remember it used to be like single digit prices. Now you're like 12, 14, 16 bucks for something, right? At least Canadian dollars, right? So 4 options that we kind of created for teachers that want to, make more money, right? I think that's the essence of what we're discussing today, is to remain in ELT. Basically, you need to make more money. Working at one school because of precarity likely won't help you achieve the financial goals that you have for yourself. Certainly it won't for me. Just one job at a time, right? So changing careers is one option, right? Going to work at McDonald's or Wendy's is an option. And then 2, within the teaching realm, right? We can tutor, right? 1-to-1. We can go after school tutoring, or what we talk about a lot is kind of create an offer, right? Then maybe you can walk us through the differences if a teacher hasn't started at all, or they're kind of thinking about, hey, I have accepted precarity. It is what it is. I don't want to leave my job. I love my job, as we all do. But the reality of the situation is I can't depend on it for all the things that I need, so I need to do something else in conjunction, right? And the 2 obvious options are 1-to-1 tutoring and, quote unquote, starting a business, but really just kind of creating an offer. What's the difference?
It's a good question. When I first started up, for me, everything was just, I accepted precarity the moment I started teaching, I guess. I knew that I wouldn't be able to just teach. I would have to always do a little bit of something else on the side, and it has been pretty much the story of my life. I've always been, freelancing and doing different things here and there. Eventually, you realize that you can do a lot of one-to-one. But as you said, one-to-one is not something that you can scale. It's not something that eventually, if you're working full-time and you're still doing some one-to-one, you're going to burn out. You're not going to, unless you are a machine, but no one can do that for a very long time or sustain that for a long period of time. And this is why you need some sort of an offer. And I'm going to give you a very good example, a very quick example of what an offer is to me. Is basically I work with one of my other jobs is I work with a lot of CEOs. So a lot of them are in the pharmaceutical industry, and basically a lot of them need English, but English is not the reason why they're there. They're there because they want to be able to develop themselves in very specific ways. Some of them want to work on critical thinking. Some of them want to work on their ability to active more listening and communicate with more impact. But what we do is, instead of offering these guys sessions every week, what I've decided to do is I've created an offer where basically I tell them, if you spend, this is the investment, let's say, I'm going to throw a number out here, let's say $500 in those 4 weeks, every month they pay $500. And what's in that offer? They have 2 sessions a month with me, but they are able to ask me questions about all the readings, all the listenings that they receive from me. So whenever we have a session, we would say we have an online session, a synchronous lesson, and then after that, I give them some work to do that week that they would have classes with me on the same time slot. I send them the work, and they do the work during that time. And if they have any questions that they want to ask me, they can send me a message, they can send me an email, and then when we meet the week after, we talk about everything they read the previous week, and that's how we go. So an offer is not like I charge $50 per lesson. The offer is, if you want to work with me, here's the package, here's the transformation, here are the results that you're going to get.
Love it.
And do you
Love
find, Leo, that teachers sometimes confuse those two? That they think that selling, say, 10 lessons just of teaching business English is the same as a
It's
proper offer?
very
Is that-
different. If you sell 10 lessons, you're still selling your hours, right? You're still selling your hourly rate. And we all know that if you don't own a piece of a business, if you don't have a clear offer, you don't really have a path towards any sort of financial freedom, right? Because at the end of the day, it's always going to be ownership versus wage work, right? Even if you're, because think about this, if you're paid for renting out your time, and we know this, lawyers, doctors, engineers, whoever, you can make some money, but you're never going to make the kind of money that you can say, like, you know what, I actually am making enough money that gives me a little bit of financial freedom because, again, you don't have any sort of ownership. When you have an offer, you clearly have a very specific group of people that you work with. For example, and Andrew posted about this recently about learning to say no. I had a client who said, "Oh, I want to have classes with you every week." I said, "I don't offer that." I said,
Right.
"I don't offer that. That's not part of my offer. My offer is this. If you want to work with me, you will have classes with me twice a month for 50 minutes, and you will have an extra 10 hours of work for you to do to help you prepare for this transformation that we want to achieve." But she eventually she tried. She's like, "Oh, what if we do it, you know, only for half an hour every week?" I said, "It's not what I offer." So I was willing to say no
See,
to
this
her.
is so interesting, right? Because I think this is backwards. I think this is where a lot of, like, in any given situation, if someone really needs the money, then you just say yes and you do it, right?
course.
But in a theoretical situation where, like, you're building wealth, you're building something, right? And as an aside, I think it's always one of my students told me this the other day. I think it's always really interesting to get the perspective of someone who's new to the country, new-ish,
Uh-huh.
right? And he was like, we were chatting about, like, what he's doing for work and stuff, and he's like, Andrew, I noticed something about Canada. I noticed the only way you can get rich here is if you own a business. It's the only way. Because the tax rate is different, the write-offs are different. If you just work for a wage at a job, you just pay you by the hour, and half of it is tax. And I was like, that's basically right. Like, and that's the people that statistically are the wealthiest people. You mentioned doctors, you mentioned lawyers. The reason they're technically wealthy is because they're partners in their practice. They don't. Being a partner means you have a part ownership, right? You don't get paid by the hour. You're part owner. So I thought that was a really interesting idea. And then the way that one way is in education that we can do that is what you just said, Leo, right? Is through what I think the most important word when developing an offer is fulfillment.
Yeah.
How do you fulfill? But that shouldn't really be the first thing, right? So when you're, to use our 5 stages of grief term, when you're bargaining with this potential client, you're going back and forth. Oh, I want classes once a week. Oh, I want classes twice a week. Irrelevant
Very.
to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
What's the goal? What are you looking to achieve? Like, if you could achieve the goal that you want without ever meeting me, would you do it?
I would.
Then what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Right? What do you need to meet me twice a week for? If I can help, I'm not saying that this would
Yeah.
work, but, like, I think people get so caught up on the fulfillment of, like, how often are we meeting?
Yes.
Who cares?
Sure,
That's
yeah.
that's the logistics, right?
That's logistics.
What's your 6-week goal or 8-week goal or a 90-day goal or whatever it is? And if you could achieve that without all of this, would you still want to do that?
You know what?
And most people would say
Yeah.
yes. Of
I'll give
course.
you a very good example from the fitness industry. My personal trainer, I see him every 2 months. We have one check-in every 8 weeks. But he create during the check-in, we talk about what went well, what went wrong, what we could improve, what's the goal for the next 8 weeks. And I say, like, this next 8 weeks, I want to focus on mobility. And he's like, I'm going to give you a bunch of mobility exercise. The next 8 weeks, I want to focus more on chest and triceps. And he customizes that. Every 8 weeks, we have a meeting. He gives me exercises. He provides me a new diet every week. So he tells me what to eat, how much to weigh, like what the weight of the food is, how many carbs, how many grams of protein, and all that. All I have to do is follow. As you said, Andrew, the reason why I've been with him for almost 3 years because he fulfills the promise. We talk about the problem and he helps me get there. I have to do most of the work, right? And I think that's another thing too, is like teachers
Right.
think that they have to carry all the burden of the learning.
Atlas complex,
Yeah.
right? So here's another food for thought on that before Mike, I'll let you jump in, right? Is on that point where I think a lot of teachers do think they have to do a lot of the work, and that's where the value lies. But in a hypothetical example, fitness doesn't work because it does take time to build muscle or to lose weight, right? But hypothetically, if Leo, if you're wanting to write the IELTS test and go from 6.5 to 7, just as a generic example, and I said to you, okay, I have 2 offers for you. In option number 1, we work together for 90 days, and after 90 days, you'll have the skills to get 7.5. Okay? The second offer is within 24 hours, you'll have those same skills. Which one is more valuable?
Which one's possible?
I mean, if you
I've done both.
if you can deliver in 24 hours, then yeah, of course, 24 hours.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 24
Reduce
hours
the
is
time.
$5,000. 90 days is 500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Very good point.
And people will say, well, wait a minute. No. But I access for 90 days and it should be more expensive. You're not paying for my time. You're paying for the result. If I can get you the result faster than everybody else, it's worth more.
Yeah.
Why wait 90 days for something you can get in 24 hours? Now, IELTS is not a good example because it's not, I mean, obviously that's not going to happen. But pricing is challenge number 2 for teachers that we see, right? Don't price on how long it takes. Arguably, you should charge more if you can do it faster.
You have to price based on the transformation that you're going to be offering. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why in pharmaceutical, like all those pills that people take for headaches and whatever, they're expensive. And then you take a yoga class and it's pretty cheap. Why? Because meditation takes time for you to feel the results. If you do, right? Take a pill, within 20 minutes, you got your transformation.
Certainly weight loss is a great example of that, right? The rise of weight loss medication. Yeah. Yeah.
Ozempic? What is it? Ozempic?
Yeah.
Oh, Canada loves
Ozempic's
Ozempic.
big one, yeah. Ozempic's actually a diabetes drug, but
It is.
Wegovy, I think, is the actual specific weight loss drug. Yeah.
But it's interesting, right? People are using it for weight loss now. Like they're asking their docs. Like we have these laws in
That's
Canada.
right,
You
because
can't, because it
gets you to the transformation faster, right?
and everyone knows it's unhealthy. I mean, I'm not saying it. I'm not libeling Ozempic, but like everyone knows taking pills is not as good for you as like doing the actual work, like exercising, meditation, yoga, whatever. And yet, most people just opt for the path of least resistance and the path of fastest results, right? Like that's human nature. I think that's pretty obvious. So as you're creating your offer, at times, adding more, to Leo's point, adding more live sessions and we see teachers make these long offers. I'm going to have a 6-month program, a 4-month program.
Right,
that actually doesn't add
That's a big
value.
one.
That doesn't add value. That might even subtract value from your offer.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. Yeah.
So rule number 1, what's the goal? Right? Number 2, why is it important? And then 3, which I think people forget or maybe don't consider, is the how, the steps.
Yeah.
Mike, we talk about this a lot, right? In 5 and 30 and TAP. And the steps are not fulfillment. Because when we ask people sometimes what the steps are, then they say, 2 sessions a week, feedback. No. Those aren't the steps. Imagine you never meet the person. You never even talk to them. What steps would you send them by email? Think about that, right?
And how explicit would those steps be, right? Like, are they quantifiable, right? Like, learn these 5 words, right? Or learn these 3 techniques, right? Before you move on to the next stage, you need to master these specific exercises. Leo, I remember you talking a little bit about when you first started with your personal trainer, He was just like, I know you might want to run ahead, but you need to first start with these exercises before you actually get started on workouts, right? But it was a set number of exercises for a set period of time. And then by the end of those 2 to 3 week period, you were then ready for that next step. But it was quantifiable, right? It was something that you could add to and build on each week until you got to that benchmark. And that's a kind of word that a lot of assessments use, but it's funny, teachers know what benchmarks are, but I find that some of the teachers that we work with, they kind of struggle operationalizing these things. As you suggested, Andrew, they might often think of the how of how this might unfold rather than the what. What are they actually specifically doing each week to get them to that transformation?
And I think that's the problem. Perhaps not the problem, but I think perhaps that's something that contributes to the problem, is the fact that because teachers are somewhat indoctrinated basically from the beginning of their teacher training course to work for someone, because every teacher training course prepares a teacher to work for an institution. What eventually becomes deeply ingrained in a teacher's mind is this idea that I have to charge by the hour because I am getting paid by the hour.
You get paid by the hour.
So if you get paid, so when they go out into the wild and they start building their teaching business, they're still doing that.
And the other part of that is they're still working from a quasi course book, right? Even if you're not using a course book, you're still, the steps would involve linguistic features, which would sound, I know it sounds strange. So like, well, of course it'd be linguistic features. Like, yes, of course. But we talk a lot about the problem you solve is not linguistic, right? Number one, because it increases the value. Get to the real problem, right? Most people don't learn languages just for language's sake. It's a vehicle to do something. So what is the thing that they actually want to do? And what are the steps involved? In your example, Leo, with the trainer, right? I forget exactly what you said, but like the steps of like how to do a deadlift and how to do this and that. Those are like his version of the linguistic features, right? But that's not really your goal. You said something to him before that, like my non-weight training goal probably is this. I want to feel like this. I want to be able
Better
to do
balance,
this.
right?
I want to wake up in the morning and do this.
Yeah.
And then he prescribed these steps, right? So the linguistic part is like our prescription to the student, but it's not. The goal is most of the time not linguistically based. That would be where the value would lie.
It's like when a student tells you that they really want to be able to communicate in a variety of situations. So if a student tells you like, oh, I want to be able to have small talk, have very formal conversations, have informal conversations. I want to be able to talk about this, be able to talk about that. What you're going to do with a student like that is you're going to prescribe a program, or not, you're going to create an offer where they would have a chance to come and talk to you. But someone like that needs to be very well read, so you can give them some extensive reading to do as part of your offer. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to teach you vocabulary about books, and then I'm going to teach you vocabulary about gardening, and then we're going to do a lesson on that's the wrong way of thinking about it. If you want them to achieve the transformation, which is to be able to talk about a variety of topics with confidence, create an extensive reading program as part of your offer, as well as them doing a few sessions with you where you both talk about specific things. You can teach them some strategies to learn vocabulary, but at the end of the day, we know the best way to learn vocabulary is just by reading. That's basically it. Just read and listen. That's it. Do a lot of that and then communicate with someone who is above your level, and you're going to be fine. But we don't do that. We're still thinking, let's teach this set of vocabulary words, and then we're going to teach this set of vocabulary words. It just doesn't go that way.
And I think part of that, Leo, comes from this idea of teachers not trusting their students and not wanting to give up control to their students. And I think what really kind of struck me when you were talking about your relationship with your personal trainer was that it's yes, the offer is there, and the offer is you have obviously a diet of exercise and a diet regime that you need to follow, but you're only talking with him every 8 weeks, but every time that you talk to him, he's expecting that you're going through and doing
Exactly.
the tasks
And he
and
knows when I
activities and
don't. He
following it.
knows because when I send him my check-in pictures, he's like, "How was this month?" I said, "Well," and then I start rationalizing certain things. I was like, "I had a very stressful month." He's like, "Did you do all the cardios?" And I said, "No," because I told him what my goals are. And he said, "You're gonna do this number of cardios. You're gonna eat this amount of food, and you're gonna do these exercise. If you don't do this, there is nothing. It's the same as a teacher thinking." And again, going back to that deeply inculcated mindset that we have, that teachers are responsible. They have to carry the weight of the world, and they just have to be
Right.
responsible for everything. If you really want to break away from teaching one to one, you need to have a clear offer. And the people who will gravitate towards you, it's because they really want to achieve that transformation, and you know how to get them there.
Yeah.
I'll take that a step further. If you're offering what you've described one to one, and we'll talk about gardening one day and we'll talk about sports another day, that client should sign up to a language school
Yes.
because that's what they want.
Yeah.
That's what language schools offer. If that's what you're offering, you're competing with the schools at a lower price, and you're just cannibalizing yourself in a sense. You need something really specific where the fulfillment isn't you all the time, right?
Yeah.
I imagine therapy is like another example, as you're talking, Leo, right? Where basically a good teaching offer is where the client needs time and space to put in the work, so to speak, on their own. If you went to see your therapist 4 times a week, you're not going to get better. You have to have time and space to implement what they recommend. At the end of the session, okay, this week, Andrew, I want you to really do this, communicate in this way, these whatever they, a variety of things that they might say. And when you come back next week or in 14 days, I want to hear how it went.
It's like this kind of trifecta then of having a very clear kind of offer transformation, a key map of stages for kind of how you get them there, and an assumption of the role of yourself as not as the teacher per se, but as the accountability buddy that's going to make sure that they're actually doing the work. And I think that's actually probably what kind of sets us apart in terms of how we approach our own program with the teacherpreneurs that we work with, which is very much we see ourselves as doing that, taking them through their transformation, being very transparent with the steps they need to take, but at the end of the day, holding them accountable. And I mean, most of the teacherpreneurs that I talk to in our network, I think that's probably the biggest compliment that we get is, without you guys, I never would have done this, right? And they're not talking about made more money or found 100 students. They're talking about, I never would have actually done it, like tick those boxes. And I think it's the exact same mindset that language teachers should be having with their own students. And that is, your job is less about delivering content, and it's more about making sure your students are putting in the work to get to that transformation. And ironically, it actually involves you doing less work and giving more control over to the students. And it's just hard. It's counterintuitive, but it's the way to go. Yeah.
It's a really good point, I think. If you imagine your client asking you, what do I need to do this? Right? Because ultimately that's why someone will sign up with you, right? We have teachers say that who join TAP all the time. Like, I want to do this. I'm really passionate. I just don't know what to do. Show me what to do. And then you give them the steps, right? And if you're a teacher and you're listening, and imagine your client asks you that, and if you're unsure about how you would answer that question, you're probably not specific enough in the niche, the problem you solve, and then the steps in your version of your solution to get to that transformation, independent of your role within that process. So maybe that's an opportunity there to think about, okay, what is the actual transformation that I offer? We use that word a lot, but like what's the goal of your clients, right? What's the niche? What do they come to you for? Get really granular, really specific, get non-linguistic, and then write down 3 to 5 steps that you've seen be really successful with all of your clients, students from wherever, to get that goal, write them down. And then you would have at least a beta, draft one version of an answer to that question.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
But there's a danger in that. We talked about this before.
What is it?
Don't create solutions. Don't start with this. Don't create solutions to problems that no one cares about.
You said that. I've talked to so many teachers recently. They're like, oh, I've created this really good program. I'm like, do you think people are going to buy it? Teachers love creating. We love creating. But I think it's a lesson. It's a mistake that we've made and a lesson that we've learned, that you need to figure it out if this course, whatever you're designing, actually solves a problem that people actually have. We always think about like the hoverboard. I always think about the hoverboard. I was talking to my kids this weekend, and we were talking about like businesses. I was talking to my son about like, having more of an entrepreneurial mindset and all that. And he's like, we saw a bunch of kids on a hoverboard, right? And I was like, oh man, I haven't seen one of those in a long time. And I was thinking about it, like, what's the problem that a hoverboard solves?
Good question. Depends on the person, I think.
It's mostly for kids, yes.
The first thing that comes to my mind is it solves a problem for parents. Kids are bored, kids are acting up, they need a distraction. It's the same thing that an iPad solves for parents.
Yeah.
Gives them something to do for a while. Parents get a
The only
break.
difference is that the hoverboards, they explode, right? They overheat. So
Perfect.
So basically they're creating again, I think the point is the hoverboard is a solution to a problem that we already have tons of other solutions for.
Also,
So it's very similar to what you said earlier. Like teachers are creating solutions to problems that other places are solving, like language schools are solving. So I think what teachers really need to figure out is like, what is a very specific problem that I'm solving for a very specific group of people, and I have a very specific method or way of guiding them through that. That's what I don't see.
and like really, really like dig, like
I don't see
really
that.
dig. Like if your answer to that is something about confidence, no.
You haven't dug
If your
enough.
answer to that
No.
is something about grammar,
No.
no. If your answer to that, like, no, right? You got to keep like dig. And that's just from talking to people, and they'll tell you, right? Just got to ask the right questions, ask the follow-up questions. Confidence with what specifically? Why do you not feel confident now? How long have you not felt confident? If you had like, what tasks are you actually doing throughout your life where you don't feel confident? Why is that an important enough problem for you to pay to solve? Are you okay to just keep suffering? Like, really, really ask those questions, and you'll find. I want to share this niche with you that I discovered recently. You'll find something, and this one is going to sound really, really bizarre. I guess it is a little bit. Are you guys familiar with toad venom?
Toad venom.
That's what they put on darts, don't they? Poison spears and arrows and stuff to take down animals. Yeah.
Apparently different varieties of toad venom. Some are poisonous, some are not.
People getting high on this thing?
Yeah, I was gonna say, doesn't Homer Simpson lick some toads? And
So a member of my family, my aunt, one of my aunts is a lawyer, and she's semi-retired, but she's kind of carved out a nice little niche for herself where she reads manuscripts of books that are about to be published or getting ready to be published to make sure that there's no slander or libel in the book. So the publishers hire her to read, and from a legal perspective, make sure that everything's kind of good to go from a slander and libel perspective. And she was reading one recently on, the manuscript was on toad venom and the benefits of toad venom. I think she said, well, I don't really think it's for me. There's no libel or slander in the book. But that occurred to me when my dad was telling me that story. I'm like, man, that's an interesting niche. Like, when you think of lawyers, you don't really think of that, but someone's got to do that, right? So someone's got to read the manuscripts to make sure that everything's, check before you publish it, to avoid being sued or huge lawsuits. Like, the more you dig into a niche area, as Leo reads about toad venom, I'm sure.
I am reading about
The more you'll find, the more you'll find.
It's crazy. It's fantastic stuff here. I'm obsessed now. But again,
You have to
a
get a good
person who's
strain,
like,
Leo. Get a good strain and do
but,
some
but it's what you're
microdosing.
saying.
Yeah, yeah.
What you're
Yeah.
saying, Andrew, is like you are just in such a specific niche, and you're going to be attracting such a specific group of people. And I feel like teachers are so creative, so a lot of them, not all of them, but they're so innovative. And I wonder, where's that innovation when it comes to creating an audience? Where's that innovation when it comes to carving your own little niche, a little corner of the internet? Where's that innovation when it comes to coming up with an offer that is different from everyone else out there? I don't see any of that. What I see, and I'm sorry to say this, all I'm seeing is the same crap being rehashed over and over and over again. Improve your confidence, gain your confidence. I can help you improve your grammar. It's like, really? Really? Can we do any better than this?
I think, Leo, maybe that stems back to the original problem, which is because teachers like to because teachers like to create, they do so that they don't have to commit to one thing. So, for example, I might teach something one way for a certain period of time, and I could keep teaching it this way because it works and it's successful. But oh no, I want to go out and create a new way, or I want to try something different. Because I'm bored of that, or I'm worried that students are getting sick of it, or so I wonder. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's innovation. But I wonder if there's also this reluctance to just commit to one thing.
There is.
What's the expression you like to use, Andrew? Chasing
shiny objects.
Chasing shiny objects, right? Like, yeah. Where if it's general enough, like confidence, then I can just keep adding new shiny objects to this program that I think will help confidence. Versus if you're really specific, it changes it from entertainment and adding shiny objects. You move away from that towards accountability, which is I could keep adding all of this stuff, but at the end of the day, my sole purpose of my program is to make sure they get from point A to point B. And I'm just going to dedicate all of my time and energy to working on that and hold my students accountable for those actions rather than thinking I need to keep adding A, B, C, and D to a new one.
So interesting, right? Like what you sell as a teacher isn't content. Like you don't need more videos, you don't need more PDFs, you don't need more handouts, you don't need more stuff. Just get them to the goal. Results. As simple as possible, as quickly as possible. And maybe one of the causes of that kind of mindset as well is that I need to keep this one student or keep this student for as long as possible because they'll keep paying. And to get them to keep paying, I have to create something new, right? So my answer to that is two-pronged. One, if you really have a very specific offer and get a really specific result for your client, they should be done and then have a nice life, right? See you later. Congratulations, by the way, you're done. Good job. And then on the other hand, hey, maybe there's another goal, another thing that they're working on within the same umbrella, and they need some accountability, to Mike's point, with that, where I can, renew them, but not with more. People don't want to watch more videos. They don't want to have more things to do. They just want more results and focusing on that as well.
Or even they just want to maintain the great habits they've learned, right? So Leo will come to a point where perhaps he won't want to work with his personal trainer anymore or continue in the same program as it's designed. But maybe he wants to still keep those routines. Maybe he still wants to have someone hold him accountable. So perhaps there's a way that personal trainer can design a program for people like Leo who have kind of been through it. They've reached their health goals, but they just don't want to lose those habits, right? They want to stay engaged.
I think that's one of the main reasons why I stay is because I have accountability. I think I'm paying mostly for accountability. There's someone who every 8 weeks I will have to send pictures to, and they will have to say, you didn't do this, you didn't achieve because again, it's all on me. It's all on me. He said, I will help you achieve this transformation, but you have to do the work.
Why did you choose him, Leo, originally? I'm sure you looked at different options. What was it about him and his offer that said to you, this is the one?
I think it's first of all the hands-off approach, the accountability approach. I think, yeah, I don't want to go to the gym and have someone working out with me. I see sometimes people at the gym and they have a personal trainer with them and they're like chit-chatting. I don't feel like you work out well that way. I feel like you chat more than you actually exercise. Which actually
I was thinking
which
about
is
the,
exactly
Andrew.
what happens.
Yeah, Andrew talks about helicopter teachers,
Exactly.
helicopter parents, and
Helicopter
helicopter
teachers.
teachers, helicopter traders, right? Leo?
Helicopter
Yeah, yeah.
trainers. It's like I feel like those people who go to the gym and they have a personal trainer, they're not so focused on the results. They're more focused on the social aspect. So they're paying for the socialization
There you go.
at the gym.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for that. I'm paying for someone who's like, this is what you need to eat. This is how you should exercise. In 8 weeks, we'll see each other again.
That's the niche.
You can get the socializing aspect at the school, right, Andrew? Yeah. They
Well,
go
that's
to
the
language
we
center
can't.
to get
That's the
that.
niche, though, right? So, as we say, you need something different. You need to niche down, but no one's reinventing the wheel, right? You're helping people communicate better, probably in some capacity. Your trainer helps people work out, get more fit, just as the other ones do who work out side by side. In the other one, there are different offers, there are different niches, there are different corners of the market. Right? If
They're both personal trainers.
They're both personal trainers. And if I'm a person who likes a more social atmosphere when I work out, I don't really care about the working out. I just want to be social. Maybe I go with the other one. Fine. I'm sure your trainer wouldn't be offended. That's his exclusion criteria, right? And then people who are more like you, who really just want the results, don't care about the socialization, at least in terms of working out, and have a little bit more probably autonomy to implement, or self-autonomy to implement a plan that someone would give you. That's the niche that this trainer has, right? So in teaching, yeah, if you really get it down to it, most teachers are helping someone with, a communicative aspect at some level. But what's your je ne sais quoi that you add to it? What's your little twist, little difference that people will choose you and not somebody else? Not because these reasons are good reasons or bad reasons. They just make people different.
That is the best way to wrap this up, because we can leave that for people as homework. That's their homework. Use all that creativity, all that innovation to figure out what your offer is. It's something meaningful. Think of a solution to a problem that people actually care about and add your own little tweak. If you need help,
A little flavor.
yeah, and if they need help, what can they do?
Click the link below. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description. If you're listening in Spotify or any other app, click the link at the top of the description there. Or if you're just listening, learnyourenglish.net/schedule. You can book a free consult with one of us, and we'll chat about your offer and give you some strategies, some feedback on it, and how to make it better. And then if you're looking for some real accountability or some extra help, we can talk about the TAP program and how it works and how you can join it. And if you think it's a good fit, a good fit for you, we can talk about how you can join.
Amen.
And I know this is going to be a quick first episode in a little mini series that we're doing. I'll hold this story for the next episode as a teaser, but I want to tell this about mindset, tell the story about how I didn't want to pay rent anymore for 3 months, and I negotiated with my landlord to not do it.
Sweet. I definitely want to hear more about
I think
that.
everyone wants to know about that. Yeah.
In business, you need a mindset. In anything, almost
Yeah.
anything is possible. Okay, guys. That was a good one. Cheers.
All right. Thanks.